Hi, and welcome back to Woman Conversations in Black and White. I'm Bernadette.
And I'm Linda. And we've chosen to share our sensitive, difficult, sometimes conversations with you, our listeners, across racial lines, because we
Mhm.
feel that it's important to start having these difficult conversations. Our hope is that by talking to each other about important and difficult topics, we can increasingly become aware of our shared humanity and develop empathy and understanding for each other. So we encourage you to find people across racial lines that are willing to do this and talk.
Mhm.
And our today's topic, Bernadette.
Today's topic is intentionally a touchy one, and that is what responsibility does the mainstream church have in easing racial tensions? And so this is one that actually Linda came up with, and I was like, ooh, ooh. But I can just give you my experience and the things I've experienced. We live in a suburban community, and I've gone to mixed churches now, probably for the last mm, 20 years or so. And so there are differences between the black church and the white church. There are definite differences. Some small, some are glaring. But the Sunday after we all watched George Floyd be murdered on live television, I tuned into my church that we had been visiting. We weren't members of, we were visiting, via web stream because of COVID. And I watched the entire service, from opening to greetings to sermon to the benediction. And there was not one single mention of us as a nation watching a black man be murdered while a white police officer had his knee on his neck. Not a single mention of it.
Wow.
And I was astounded. I was hurt. I was angry. I was a mix of emotions because I knew that there was not a single black church in the United States that did not talk about that Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And it prompted me to write a letter to the pastor then. And my ending question is how can we say all lives matter when black lives don't matter to the white church? At what point does the church stand up and say that all lives can't matter if black lives don't? And so
Mm-hmm.
there has been, to me, this fissure that has really took root as far as the separation in the mainstream church for them, for many, and not all, but for many, not standing up and speaking up and truly living to the gospel as it is written. Because the gospel as it is written says we are all our brother's keepers. So it should not matter what color the brother is. But often the white church has been painfully silent when it comes to issues on race. And I'll never forget. So I was talking to some white men. It was like, well, the church doesn't want to get involved in politics. Black Lives Matter is not about politics. That is a human rights issue. We are literally talking about being able to breathe and live and continue on earth. That has nothing to do with politics. And if the church doesn't have something to say about human
Right.
rights issues, then who does?
Right. Yes, I was with you, and you graced me by sharing that letter to a pastor
Hmm.
about that. And it was very moving. It was very moving. Did you get any response ever, or do you prefer not to say?
No, I got a response. We ended up having a FaceTime call, and he admitted that he had missed the mark. Did he ever speak of it as far as in public on that platform? I never saw it. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't watch the service again after supremacists and white nationalists broke into the Capitol. Nothing, absolutely nothing. And so,
Wow.
and I haven't heard many white churches condemn that. So not only have many not spoken up for those who need to be spoken up for, but they have also not spoken against those that need to be
Right.
spoken
Right.
against.
I think that churches think that they need to stay out of politics, and we are living through a time when politics is taking over what should be justice and what should be human rights. And
Hmm.
politics has intruded into those areas and said, no, that's not human rights, that's not justice, that's politics. And then therefore you,
Hmm.
church, can't talk about it. And I think that's where it's coming from. And I don't agree with those teachings, but I believe that's what's happened, is that it's like facts have become politicized and justice has become politicized and
Hmm.
human rights have become politicized, and churches aren't really supposed to be in politics. So pretty soon the church has to walk this tiny little thing, which is kind of how authoritarianism takes over. It's like, we don't
Hmm.
want any back talk, so we're going to shut it down wherever we
Hmm.
can. So I'm not saying that's true in every individual church. I just think that we're living in a time when that's a phenomenon that's going on. I haven't checked around at all the different broadcasts to know what different churches did. I do know that our church, it was spoken
Hmm.
of, perhaps not like it would be in a Black church, but it was spoken to
Right.
in both the prayer and
Hmm.
in the talk in the days following, off and on. I appreciated that because on everybody's heart, and I appreciated it being a topic. And since then, you and I have been invited to give small groups at a particular church, to do small groups to try to introduce to the concept of talking across these lines. So that's a small thing. It's a small
It
thing.
is. And
So
I halfway go with that, the wanting to stay out of the political arena. But when it comes to being pro life, the church got a whole lot to say. Right. So I don't understand how you can be so active on embryos and fetuses who have not made it here yet, whatever your stance is on that. But you have nothing to
right,
say about full grown human beings being murdered. I, I, I can't put those two together. That is an
no,
incongruent message.
right. I am with you 100%. I completely agree that pro-life doesn't really mean pro-life.
No, it means pro
It
birth.
means pro this particular opinion. Yeah, it's pro-birth,
Yes.
and the fact that different people and different cultures might interpret that differently is thrown
Hmm.
out the window in favor of I'm right and everybody else is wrong.
Yes.
And I understand the shades of gray and the confusion there. I get that. But
Hmm.
the hard line and how this one opinion can become more important than children's lives and children's well-beings and
Hmm.
Black people being murdered at the hand of law enforcement, all of that, I
Hmm.
that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
So yes,
Hmm.
I'm completely with you there.
Yeah.
So
So I don't. Yeah.
it's
So I,
another.
quandary. So I don't know how the the white church reconciles that, because truth be told, in order for things like this to ever make amends, you need the white church and the black church to be able to come together and have honest conversations and listen to
Right,
realities and experiences and figure out a way to change it together. And I don't see where those
right,
extensions have been made, or even where some white churches have recognized the importance of that reality, for one, before they can even make
right.
the extension to do so. Yeah. Yeah.
There is a Black pastor who's doing a lot nationwide. Are you familiar with Reverend William Barber? I think he's from the South, or the
Okay.
Southeast. Where
Okay.
Reverend William Barber the third, I think, and he's a large man, a little bit forward. He wears his priestly robes a lot.
He's over the
He
commission
calls it
for the for economic relief for the poor.
probably because that's his. He
Yes.
calls it a moral revolution, and it's the
Yes.
poor people's.
Yes.
He's
Mm-hmm.
eloquent, and
Yes.
he draws. Of course, he is Black and he's
Mm-hmm.
Southern, but
Mm-hmm.
um, he's drawing from a lot of different people and pulling them in together. So I have a question for you, and this has no agenda.
Yes.
I truly don't know. What do you think? Or maybe you've listened to a recording or two, since so many were online. What do you think a Black church would have said the week after George Floyd's death? What would have been coming from the message there? Or what would you have wanted to be? Or what did you see? Either one.
But for one, there's not only the acknowledgement of that one loss of George Floyd, but how this has been a continual, consistent loss of Black lives over the time since we've been here. And so that is acknowledged, and there is space made for that grief and for that reality that we all live with, and that we all recognize that that could have been my dad, that could have been my brother, that could have been my husband. And so the Black church makes space for that. It also makes space for the conversations of how to utilize those painful experiences into something of purpose, something tangible, something that we can put our hands on, that is a step in the right direction. And so those are the things that the Black church always has done, and within the Black community since there's been a Black church. And it makes space for us to even be angry and upset about it, because when you go the white
Mhm.
church, they while they may say that that was a tragedy, or it was horrible, or a disservice, they do not recognize that Black people in general have every right to have a generational anger over how we have been treated as a people. The white church never recognizes that. And so when that is expressed
Mhm.
or verbalized, it is taken, for one, personally, or for two, as an insult, or for three, remember, God says turn the other cheek. And so God also, and Jesus himself also showed righteous anger, but that is not something that white churches have allowed Black people to be able to express. And so that space is in the white church.
Right, right.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wow. There's a lot there. We could talk about that for another whole time. But
Yes.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And I'm not a trained psychologist, but I do love to understand human behavior. And it's like in simple relationships between two people, if
Yes.
one has dominated the other for forever, and then that
Hmm.
other one finally gets a glimmer of it and starts to open up,
Hmm.
it's like the one that's done the dominating can't afford to admit that there was wrongdoing because they are afraid of the anger of the other one,
Hmm.
the righteous anger.
Hmm.
I'm sure that's going on. I mean, individually, there's all these individual stories, my story, your story, and so forth.
Hmm.
But culturally, there's this mass feeling, ooh, we can't afford to let them get away with that, or we can't afford to do
Right.
that. And I'm just
Hmm.
talking massive here, not me
Yes.
personally.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so we've got all those factors going on too, besides the individual stuff. And it's,
Yes.
wow,
Hmm.
I don't know what the way through is, Bernadette, but I'm trying to do our part and stand strong and make it through with truth.
Yes. No, you're correct. It is with truth, but it's also with a level of discomfort, because you and I's conversation are often uncomfortable. And so, unless you're willing to be in
Yeah,
that
I agree.
uncomfortable space, to make those connections and to understand those realities, nothing will change. We have to be willing to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. So listeners, if you're going to dare to try this, just expect it's not going to be a warm, fuzzy thing. Now, I love
No.
Bernadette and I know that she loves me,
Yeah.
but when we dive into these harder topics, I know it's going to be uncomfortable. And I try to
Hmm.
dress up and look nice and be cozy and have my water so that I can take it, but it's
Hmm.
not comfortable.
Hmm.
And I don't know how it feels for you, but it's not especially comfortable.
No,
And
it's not
yet
comfortable for me. Mm-mm.
our friendship is, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's talking about
No.
hard stuff with somebody that you don't know for sure how it's going to react.
Hmm. And even, but that even, you
So,
have to be
well,
willing to accept a level of vulnerability too. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think that's a good lesson. If you dare to do this
Yeah.
with someone that is willing to, I don't
Mhm.
know that we've made a formal agreement, just that we have agreed to talk about these things and we've
Yeah.
agreed to film them.
Mhm.
And the rest is
Mhm.
just that we trust each other at kind of a heart level.
Yes.
And that's it.
Mhm.
It took us a few months to earn that trust from each other, but we
Right.
have done it.
We have.
So,
So there you go. Start there. Start earning trust, building trust, and then have
uh,
these conversations. So please like, comment,
yep,
subscribe,
yep.
but most importantly, share with your friends, share with your circles, and share in safe spaces. And so until next time, start talking and keep talking.